All right, we are live. I know some of you guys are already logging on. Super excited to be here talking about how to get amazing skin tones in your post-production. And if you notice me looking down, it's because I'm looking at the chat and looking at the people logging in and listening to you guys. Really quickly here, I'm going to, let's see, put up a quick poll about editing, because my number one goal is to figure out what are your guys' problems and how do we solve them. So also, if you can't see me or hear me, let me know. The best thing you can do is click the big refresh button to refresh your actual window if you're having an issue of some kind, versus there's a reconnect button at the bottom. You can try that, but we've noticed that it's better if you just refresh the whole page. So you can try that. But take a look at this poll right here and go ahead and answer that for me. What is your biggest editing struggle? And is it how long it takes for you to edit your photos, getting your images to look the right way, confusion about using Lightroom the best way possible, organizing your images? I know that's a big one, but what is it? What is the biggest issue right there? And it looks like right now, so far, of the 120 of you that have already logged on, getting your images to look right is a strong winner. And that's one of the things we're gonna talk about, one area of that today, which is getting those skin tones to look gorgeous. Awesome. So keep filling that out. A couple of the quick things. Oh, you guys are already telling me where you're from. Amanda, hi everyone. Michael from Dayton, Ohio. Kimberly from Maryland. Margaret said consistency. Yes, consistency is super hard and very, very challenging. The other thing I want you guys to do is if you have questions about anything Lightroom editing related, go ahead and form them in the form of a question. So if you scroll down to the bottom of your chat, there's a little chat button, and you can switch it from a basic chat to a question, and it'll come up as red, and it'll help me find it really quick later. So go ahead and do that as well. Jack from Washington, D.C. Hi, Zach. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming, Jack. Sarah, hey, from Denver. And if you guys are down, like there's a thing where you can press to raise your hand. You see a little raise your hand button. If you're in, we could bring a couple of you guys on live with me, and you could ask a question live, and we could chat about it. Hopefully I have the answer. So a couple other things. One, we're not offering anything to buy on this webinar. I am going to talk about something that you can get on a waiting list for at the very end. That's going to be really cool. It's a new thing that we're working on, but it's not done yet. So you hear about that. Saskatchewan. Welcome, Crystal from Saskatchewan. Kathy, hi. I've not seen you since an early Zach and Jody through Creative Live. Yeah, back in 2012, 13, 14, 17, 18, 6 years ago. That's crazy. But yeah, another quick, really exciting surprise. I have an amazing friend who's like one of the best Lightroom gurus in the world. His name is Jared Platt. He literally works with Adobe. He's going out actually this week to New York to the big Photo Plus convention to teach on the Adobe stage. He helps Adobe create Lightroom, and he's coming on next week to teach one of his favorite tips in Lightroom. I haven't gotten all the details yet, but it's going to be awesome. I've heard him teach a number of times, and he's amazing. Oh, Margaret, I'm in Scotland. Do you mean like the country, or like Scotland, Wisconsin? But that's amazing. Welcome. Yeah, Catherine just said Jared is a great teacher. He is. He's absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to try to fix my camera here really quick. I notice it keeps going in and out of focus. Let's see if that, there we go. Denver, Margaret, yes, that's from the country, from Scotland. That's awesome. Hey, Sean is from Leapers Fort. We met in New York City many years ago before y'all had kids. Hey, welcome, Sean. Glad to have you here. Okay, so we got Jared coming on next week. It's going to be exciting. I'm spending a month, 4 weeks in a row. Tell all your friends. Tell everybody that you know to come and join these. Send those links that I send out to anybody you feel free to send out to. We're going to be teaching Lisa from Vermont. Burr, yes, it's already getting cold here in Nashville too. So, but we are going to be teaching everything Lightroom. Lightroom is like the other half of your photography life. You spend time, a little bit of time shooting and a long time editing. And for me, if we hop back in time here, one of the things that me, Zach Gray, your photography coach, everything photography coach and mentor, has learned over the last 11 years is that when I first started shooting, I shot for a school yearbook company who shot medium JPEGs in all their photos, and everything was like custom white balance, perfect lighting, all this crazy stuff. And as we were shooting, I thought, you're not supposed to edit digital photos. That was my introduction to digital photography. And I literally didn't think there was any editing, because they kept saying if we have to edit something, like, we wouldn't be able to sell, because they're only selling them for 12, 15, 20 bucks a print, and it's a volume business. So when I started shooting, I thought, okay, you shoot on JPEG and you just shoot the photo correctly, and there's not really anything you have to do to it. Then, of course, we got into weddings. I learned there was this thing called RAW, where you could adjust the photo a lot, which was radically transformational, because you can't shoot everything perfect. But that mentality stuck in my head, and I thought, man, we got to shoot the best photos possible at all time. So that was a really, really critical for us when we started, and it helped us a lot to be very focused on shooting great photos and polishing when it came to editing, instead of having all this crazy time trying to manipulate the daylights out of the photos. So with that being said, my workflow 6, 7 years, even 9 years ago when I first started, was about 5 hours total to import, cull through, pick all the photos, edit all the photos, retouch all the photos, export and upload them online for my clients. For a 4,000 image wedding down to, say, 500 to 700 final photos, it'd take me about 5 hours. Then I met Jared Platt, and he introduced me to some new tips and tricks and tools, which we've been fast friends ever since. And then it cut my editing time down to about 2.5 hours on average total. It actually cost me more time to outsource my work to someone else to edit it than it took me to just do it myself. So that's the goal here, and that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about skin tone. We're going to be talking about how to make your images look beautiful. That's one of the things that all of us want. And I really believe that the difference between a photo that could be really, really good and great is that little bit of finesse in the way that final texture on the photo looks, with the skin and with the retouching and how all that works. So technology, right? Okay, I haven't done a ton of live webinars lately. So the goal here is to make sure that we don't have any technical goof ups here. So I'm going to actually close a few things. I've got Photoshop open, which I shouldn't have open. Okay, so I'm going to try to hop into my Keynote here, and if there's a technical glitch, I'm going to fix it. But as I'm going through this is going to be about 30 to 35 minutes, about 35 minutes long is my goal. So like I said, right to the point. We're not going to mess around. About 35 minutes, and then at the end, we're going to have plenty of time for questions from you guys as well. So let me see if we can get this working here. Okay. Let's see. Hang tight. Let's find out what's going on. Yeah. All right. Everybody bear with me for a second. Okay, it's telling me there's some sort of must be a valid URL. Okay. Let me see here. Come on, baby. I'm trying to get this to be my friend here. Hang on. We're going to get this working. Thank you guys for being patient. And if you have questions that start or are coming up, bring them on. And we'll get it figured out here. Okay. One more second here. I promise. Okay. All right, this dumb thing is not going to work for me. So what we're going to do here is we're going to try it this way. So let's see. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So hang tight 1 second while I just get my I've got Lightroom open. I need to get this little guy open. Hang tight. That's not it. I apologize, everybody, for dinking around here while you're waiting. Is this what I need? Yes. Okay. Thank goodness. I was about to go crazy here. I was just trying to find my keynote slide. Okay. Sorry about that. All right. So now I'm going to share my entire screen with you, which is always scary because, hopefully my screen doesn't look terrible. My background on my computer. All right. So you guys should be looking at my screen now. And sometimes it does this little funny, crazy thing in the beginning, but okay, there we go. So now you guys should be able to see what I'm talking about here. So what I'm going to do before we go any further is I'm going to hop out of this because I can't see the webcast. So I'm just going to hop out. So tell me that you can see that it's a step 1, finding soft light. Just comment really quick and say yes. And then I'm going to hop out of here to take a look at it to make sure that I can see that from you guys. Did you see that? Okay, you're saying working great. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm going to hop back in. Here we go. Thanks so much for, oh, wait, hang on. That's not what I want. Thanks so much. That's great. Okay, my entire screen, share. Okay. All right, so step 1, finding great light. Now you may be asking me and saying, wait a second, Zach, we're supposed to be talking about retouching and Lightroom and all that stuff. So why are you talking about soft light? Well, the reason for this is that soft light and finding great light in your photographs is really the most critical part of anything that you're going to do. The reason for that being is try to imagine making this photograph in post-production look good. So now you may be laughing right now. Yes, this is a photograph that I shot. I did intentionally shoot it with bad lighting. But the reason that finding good light is so important is because if we don't have good light on our photo, there isn't much that we can really do to save it. Like we can try to do some work to it and paint in and dodge and burn and do all this stuff to try to recreate or create some light in the photograph, but you're going to struggle. It's not going to really look good. Instead, what we want to do is we want to find great light. So I'm going to spend the first little chunk here talking about that, how to find great light, because that's going to be the workhorse for you. That's going to supply 80% of how your skin tones are going to look is going to be based on finding that great light. So first up, I like to think about hard and soft light. Okay, we got a hard light image on the left, soft light image on the right. When I'm photographing portraits, weddings, portrait sessions, I did a portrait session two days ago for my friends, David and Tammy, for their family. I'm going to show you actually a photo of that and edit it for you live. The reason that I like soft light versus hard light is because if you look at the image on the left, and both of these have the same exposure and the same retouching on them, believe it or not. Okay. The image on the left, which is no retouching, by the way. The image on the left has a very hard light source, aka a small light source. And here's the issue with hard light. It's not that it can't be really cool and look really amazing and be really dramatic, but it's going to require more retouching. And here's the reason. You look at the shadow under her nose, you've got that highlight on the tip of her nose and then that really aggressive shadow underneath. Now look just to the left at her cheek and notice those little anomalies there. The reason you're seeing those on the left photo and not on the right photo is because hard light is contrasty, right? It has a lot of specularity. So the light comes in and hits a peak and creates a lot of brightness. And then any valley or even the tiniest little anomaly on your face, and it shows that it's like turning up the volume on bad skin or bad complexion or whatever it may be. When you have soft light, you have a soft transition between highlight and shadow because a large light source blurs or softens up the way the light falls on your subject. So instead of having that bright peak and that dark valley, you have a moderately bright peak and a moderately dark valley. So you're filling in all of those shadows and anomalies, and you naturally just have softer looking skin because soft light produces soft skin. How do we do that in this particular photo? We just opened up a big diffuser in the direct sun. Now we have a large light source that's very even, and boom, we've got this soft light on our subject. Okay, so step 2, after we find that soft light, we want to make sure that it's directional. Okay, Directional, I mean I have a highlight on one side and a shadow on the other side. So where's some places that I look for those soft light sources? One is an indirect window light, about 4 to 6 feet away, always 30 to 45 degrees at an angle to my subject. We can also find it in open shade, covered shade, reflected sunlight, so light bouncing off of, something else like a building or something. And then diffuse sunlight, which can be a diffusion panel. It can be clouds on a cloudy day. It can create diffuse light, whatever it may be. That's all going to create softer light sources. So when it comes to soft light, here's an example, right? Indirect window light. There's a window to a camera left. It's about 6 feet away. It's coming in at a 45-degree angle to my camera. So the light's hitting her, and we have that nice highlight on the left side of the frame and that nice shadow on the other side of the frame, okay? So here's a great example of what I like to do with women a lot is I want one big, huge, as big as I can get, big, beautiful light source. So this is a wedding that Jody and I photographed. Actually, the brides got ready in our house. So this is in my home. And that we have a north-facing window that always has indirect light coming through it. We put the bride sitting down because the window, if you stand up, you're kind of standing in the middle of the height of the window. And I want the middle of that light source above the middle of her eyes. And all that soft light's coming through. She's about 5 feet away from the window, 4 to 5 feet away. And the reason for that is we get a nice highlight on camera right. And we have a nice transition to shadow. It doesn't get too dark. Notice if you ever get really close to a window, it's bright really quick and it gets dark really fast because light in close gets dark quick. So the reason we move them away a bit is because it softens up that transition. It makes the highlight and the shadow not so aggressive. Okay. And then I always like to use, if at all possible, this short lighting technique. So I turn the bride's body away from the light source, turn her face towards the light source. And that creates this short light pattern where we're highlighting a sliver of her body and we're putting in shadow the biggest portion of her body. What's great about that, it's very slimming, it's very beautiful, it's very feminine, it looks phenomenal. That's the key right there. That soft light in the right place at the right direction is gonna create an incredible amount of pre-retouching, if you will, on your photographs because they're already looking soft and buttery to begin with. Then, of course, the right lens. I use the 85mm from Canon quite a bit, and I shoot it fairly shallow when I'm doing portraits like f4 2.8, and that everything that's not in focus is going to be naturally more soft, so that's going to help me even more. So I focus on the eyes. Notice her lips on camera right are slightly out of focus. We get more blur. We get more natural retouching automatically. And the light looks very three-dimensional. It looks beautiful, right? So, and that's what we want. 3D highlight shadow, less retouching is going to be needed because the parts that you can actually see, the bright parts are few and far between. Okay, so step 3, what do I do if I'm outside on location and I don't have any light? That's awesome. I just have some really nasty sunlight. Well, that's when I want to be able to make my own light. So if you can learn how to master off-camera flash, you are going to be a happy photographer. Now, you don't have to carry around a ton of gear like you used to in the old days. They now have amazing flashes like the ELB 500 from Elinchrom, the Profoto B2, which are like 3 to 4 times the weight of a speed light. So 3, 4, 5 pounds, some of these things, and they're 5, 6, 7 times more powerful. You can also use speed lights. I'll talk about that in a second. But if we can create a soft light source and bring a window around with us, awesome. This particular shoot, I was up in Colorado with Westcott Lighting, and they wanted a photograph that looked amazing on her with the mountains in the background. And this is the only place we had to shoot. And I was just stuck shooting this time of day. So what am I going to do? I've got beautiful, back corner left lighting, hard light on her face, and then this terrible shadow on the other side. And then it blows out the background when I expose it, and it looks terrible. So, of course, we use the one off-camera flash to camera left, and for this particular shot, I used 2, one to camera right. We set up the shot, and we're able to create photos that this is 90% in the camera. This is 10% post-production, a little bit of retouching, slight amount of Photoshop for just some anomalies that I had to remove for when they went to print with this. But most of this can be done in the camera with a little bit of off-camera flash knowledge. And what's cool about these new flashes coming out is they can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. They can do a lot of those auto features that your speed lights will do. So notice anytime I'm using off-camera flash, I'm looking for a big soft light source, the biggest I can get away with. I'm moving it off to camera right or left, turning my bride, if I'm shooting a bride or female, her body away from the light, her face towards the light, and it's going to create that incredibly soft, beautiful light and get that beautiful sky in the shot. Standing in direct, harsh sun. Look at how harsh those shadows are. Okay, so some of you may also go, well, I'm not going to use that big gear, but what can I do with my speed light? If you put your speed light through this little thing called the rapid box, which I like to use, it pops open and close. It's 20 to 24 inches in size, and it will make some great light. If you need more direction with some of your light, meaning you want to push some in from the side instead of having it maybe coming straight on in the shadows, it can do that. So check out this quick little video. I'm not going to show you this whole video, just like 2 seconds so you can see where the light is. But there you can see I got the light off to her right, camera left. And the light that was there was really beautiful, but it wasn't directional. It was kind of flat. So I put the flash off to camera left and made it a little bit brighter than the background and was able to get this beautiful highlight and shadow. And look what a speed light can do. Look at how gorgeous and how beautiful the light is. Okay, so before we hop into Lightroom, a couple extra natural lighting locations that you guys can focus on. One, covered shade is great. So we like to find some covered shade if it's really bright out and just tuck someone slightly underneath that covered shade so the light still gets into them. And it can look like this. Absolutely beautiful. Shot at a real wedding. It started raining. It was raining on the bride and groom, or the bride and the bridesmaids, and the only thing we could do is get in this covered shade. We tucked them slightly back in there. And notice just behind their feet, it's really, really dark. We didn't want to tuck them too far back, just a little bit. And we get that beautiful light on their faces. Reflected sunlight, this is awesome. Looking for light bouncing off of something and shining light into the shade is a great option. This is a location here that Jody and I used to shoot at a lot, downtown Nashville, where the light would come over the top of the building that they're leaning against, bounce off of this big white 3-story brick building, and pump all this beautiful directional light onto our subjects, and it was awesome. So that's another place. So lastly, if you only do one thing, for adding more soft light to your subjects, it's get a reflector. A reflector is one of the most powerful tools that you can use in photography. And what's great is a lot of these zip off and they have a diffusion panel inside, so you can diffuse some light, you can reflect some light in the shade, and it's just awesome. I also carry around this gigantic Westcott 7-foot parabolic umbrella. What's cool is when you break this thing down, it's actually really small, and then you can open it up and create all this shade and do 2 or 3 people in a group can get underneath this thing. You can put it on a tiny little stand or a little boom stand, and you can, hover it up over the top of people. And it just basically creates this, cloudy day look, and you can make it directional. So you can angle it and bring the light in. But check this out. That's in direct sun using that thing. Just hovered it over her head, exposed for her face, and boom, we get this beautiful, beautiful soft light. Diffuse sunlight using a reflector also works really, really well. I like to angle it at an angle so the light comes in at a 45-degree angle instead of straight down on top of their head. And you can see us doing that specifically right here. Notice it's at an angle. There's Jody off to camera left here shooting our subject underneath that softened shade. And we end up getting this fantastic look right here. Okay, I've stressed it enough. Focus on amazing light first. Really, really soft, beautiful light. That's going to be your best friend. Then we'll get into retouching. Okay, so I'm going to hop out of this. I'm going to turn off really quick just to make sure. Everybody tell me you can see everything, you can hear everything. Somebody said you do not see video. You might not have been able to see that little video when I played it. That's possible. But just let me know that you could see and hear everything I was doing. And now I'm going to hop into Lightroom. Everybody good? Somebody give me some feedback here. I'm waiting on you. There we go. Aaron says yes. Awesome. Okay, cool. It always freaks me out a bit when I'm just looking at the screen. I can't see the comments and everything. Normally we'll have multiple monitors set up. I don't have that set up today. Yeah, see everything. Okay, excellent. Great. All right, so we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to screen share. We're going to hop into Lightroom. Now we're going to get into the nitty gritty. Now that we've got this beautiful light, right? That's the #1 focus. So you may have some images where you're going to see me go through what I'm going to go through, and then you're going to go do that on some photos that maybe don't have the best light. You're going to have more of a challenge and more of a struggle. My #1 goal here is to equip you to be the best photographer possible, and then really great at finessing your photos once they're done. Thanks, everybody. That was not the Michael. Not seeing the video. Must have two Michaels. Okay, great. So somebody wasn't able to see the video, but a lot of you guys say you were, so awesome. But it was a short little thing, and there's no other videos, so don't worry. Okay, here we go. So we're going to hop back into my screen share, and then I'm going to hop into Lightroom. Share my entire screen. Here we go. And you guys should be able to see Lightroom. Okay. So I've pulled out a few select photos for you guys. Let me hide this really quick. Okay, cool. I pulled out a few select photos for you guys to showcase some different stuff. Some stuff that I've shot recently, some stuff that you saw earlier, and then some stuff from that wedding that we shot here at the house. So let's start with these two images, and let me kind of run down with you guys exactly what the first thing that I'm looking for when it comes to the editing side of things is. And the first thing is exposure and color. Those are the two most important things to start with. Once I've got directional light, I've got soft light, I've got the right lens, I've got, you know, all that pretty stuff that we need pre-shot. And by the way, this is the before image and this is the after image. So before is on the right, after is on the left. What I'm looking for next is exposure and color. Now in the camera, what I tend to do, a lot of photographers will tend to shoot very bright photos in the camera because then when you show them to your clients, they look awesome. But the challenge with that, and I used to do that a lot too. The challenge with that is when you come into post-production, you limit your possibilities with your photos because it's very hard to darken digital photos if they're too bright or on the edge of too bright, but it's very easy to brighten them up. They brighten up a lot easier than they get dark because digital cameras don't like highlights. They like shadows better, okay? It was the exact reverse with film photography. Film photography, you could shoot your images and get away with a lot more highlight over exposure and have a lot more control and latitude over it. With digital, you go about one stop over exposed and that's it. The image, you're not going to get any of those details back. So I'm a detail nut. I want the details. So notice here on the before image, the original image, this is completely raw. If I go into the development module, you can see completely flattened out as shot. This is exactly how I shot it. So a couple of things we do is one, I want, here, let me just highlight just these photos. One of the things that I want first and foremost is accurate exposure first, okay? So notice it's slightly underexposed intentionally. So the first thing I'm going to do is just brighten the photo up a little bit. And what I also want to do is instead of trying to focus on the whole image getting brighter, because I actually kind of like the way this background looks. And typically, if you have a bright background, you don't necessarily want it to get brighter. You just want them to get brighter. So back in the old days in Lightroom, you could pull up they used to have a slider called midtone, and that would pull up kind of this mid-range density right here. But now exposure actually just does that automatically. You notice if I pull this exposure slider up and down, watch the histogram up here, how it kind of shakes back and forth, kind of like a U, right? It has this effect like this. Well, what it's doing is it's holding on to the highlights and holding on to the shadows and trying to just pull up the center density of that photograph. So if I pull this up a little bit to say 60, now it's starting to look much better. We still got some great detail back here, a little more flares coming through, but we've got this nice highlight in here, and the density has been opened up. And I also will do that a little bit with the shadows too. I'll open them up even just a little bit more and then do a general contrast to kind of make it look natural. Okay. The next thing we want is we want the color to be accurate. We got to have accurate color. You don't have good exposure, skin is going to need more retouching, right? Go a little bit bright on the skin tones, it's going to need a little less retouching. And I know a lot of photographers like those really bright skin tones. I'm fine with that. That's totally preferential. And exposure is very preferential. Some people like dark photos. Some people like bright photos. That's up to you. But I like to just make them look airy and pretty. Okay, kind of like this. That's the final photo, right? How do we get to there? That's the question. Okay, so the next thing is color, right? We need accurate color. So notice over here, there's this gray box. Well, what that is this is an Expo Disc photograph, and Jody and I use the Expo Disc for color, which is basically we just place it over our lens and we shoot the light that falls on their face falls into our lens. And we take a picture of that, and then we can custom white balance our camera. And notice it came out to 6,093 plus 8. right? That's the color. So if I take this color, and this is the main image selected, that's the one I'm going to send this data to, and I synchronize nothing except for white balance. Check it out. Boom. Now we've got a neutralized color palette. It went from this crazy orange rich, which is coming from like the light bleeding in over here through the lens, and there's some flare, to neutralizing that color balance and giving us white looking whites, more natural looking skin tones, much better looking overall photograph. Now you may be saying, well, hang on a second, I don't have an expo disc shot and I don't use an expo disc. What can I do? Well, very simple. And I'll give you a good tip here too. You can grab the white balance dropper, which is right here, put it over something moderately white and click it, then grab it again and start hovering over and look for, notice where it says pick a target neutral. Notice at the bottom of that, 71, 70, 71. What we're trying to do is get that to 50, 50, 50 as close as we can. And 50, 50, 50 is neutral gray. So notice right here, it's 45, 45, 44. And then if I just warm it up just a touch because it was at 50, that's actually fairly neutral tone. It's slightly green because there's a lot of green light being reflected around. That's actually the right color. We can pull a touch of that out. That's the way to get yourself to a neutral tone. Now, I'm not going to keep it neutral. I'm going to probably warm it up, but that's going to give me a baseline for getting my skin tones to start looking really good. Okay, awesome. So now we got good looking skin tones. What else do we got to do to get this going from this to that, right? Okay, so let's go back to my my white balance shot, which is a little bit warmer tone. Okay, the next thing that I like to do is I like to bring up the vibrance because that enhances colors that are already enhanceable, like greens and blues and reds, and it tends to leave skin tones away unless you have a lot of that in your skin. Another thing I like to do, and this is for a cinematic effect, this is very preferential, is actually bring the saturation down by about 18 to 20%. And then I warm up the overall shot to compensate, and it gives me sort of this cinematic look to it, where it's a little unreal looking or unnatural looking, but just a tiny bit to where it looks a little cinematic, and I really dig that look. Okay, next is I'm a Canon shooter, and Canon tends to shoot the reds and oranges a little rich, so I naturally pull those down just a touch, and then I go to the luminance and HSL and color, and I'll pull the orange channel up just a bit, and notice how the orange channel controls the skin, right? And anything obviously in that tonal range. But if I bring it up just a touch, now we're starting to get some of this brightening of this area, and it's starting to look really nice. Now the next thing, and this is one of the big ones, okay? This is really, really important. When it comes to starting to get the skin to look extra gorgeous, but not overdone, what's my goal here and what is my focus? So here's where I land on that. If a bride's face is less than 1/3 of the frame, I don't do a localized retouching, meaning I'm not going to grab a brush and start painting, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to do that on images where her face is, say, this big, where you're going to notice, even in an iPhone photo, little anomalies like these ones here on her forehead or these few things on her nose. She has a pretty good skin, but just these few little things you're going to notice. So I'm not going to do that unless her face is that large. So if we go back to the shot we're working on here, notice how small her face is. If we were looking at this on an iPhone, which is what most people are going to do, it's going to be about that big in perspective, right? That's about the size of an iPhone right there. Not very big. And from my computer, I'm on a 15-inch screen. So keep that in mind, right? We don't need the photograph to be gargantuous, or over retouched. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do a general. So instead of localized, I'm going to do a general retouching using noise reduction. So Lightroom has really incredible noise reduction. If I zoom in, that's zooming out. If I zoom into this photo, we'll get a little bit closer here, like this, you'll notice by the way, most of us do this. We zoom into like 180% and we go, oh, look, there's a little, thing on her cheek right here and right here and right here. Well, people aren't looking at that close, right? Unless they get this printed in an album. So I don't want to spend my life and all my time going crazy retouching photos that don't need it. Instead, what I want to do is give this a nice look so that it looks good even up to, say, a 5:7 image. Now, don't get me wrong. If she had a giant red zit right here, I'm going to take it off. But unless she does, I'm not going to, right? I'm just going to do a general noise reduction. Now, check this out. I'll kind of go extreme in the beginning so you can see what it's doing. But noise reduction is really smart because it takes anything that's smooth and it smooth like skin and a background, and it smooths it out. It avoids things like eyebrows and lips and that kind of stuff. So watch what this does. Think. You see that? Automatically retouched. If I zoom out, look at the difference between what we just did. If I take that off, zoom back in, you can see all those anomalies. If I add that on, boom, it automatically adds this layer, which in great detail is not perfect, but in a natural viewing like this, which is even right here, we're talking like this is iPad sized right here. It looks amazing. And trust me, your clients are not zooming in like this. Okay. It's starting to look really fantastic. Now is where things get exciting. Okay. So now we've got the noise reduction. So we've got nice light. We've got nice background. We've got a good lens. We've got a good composition. We've got good direction of light. Now, profiling is where things are going to start to get really amazing. This is a new thing in Adobe where you can set up and create these custom profiles, okay? And these things are ridiculously cool. And what these basically do is they emulate or simulate other cameras or other films or whatever it may be, and you can do all these amazing things with them. So some photographers would only shoot on, say, Fuji 120 or Fuji 160 film because it had this beautiful effect on skin tone. Well, that happens to be the one that I use quite a bit. So check this out. I'm going to add it in, pull down my saturation like I like to do, and check out that effect. Look at how gorgeous that is. If you look at the before and the after, there's something about that profile from a Fuji 162C that is just amazing. So now that we are using that profile along with the noise reduction and the existing soft light, we're starting to get, and again, good accurate color and good accurate exposure. We're starting to get something that's just gorgeous and just beautiful. Now we can finesse it if we want to. Maybe the exposure needs to come up a touch. Maybe we want to adjust the shadows just a little bit, whatever you see fit. And now we can apply that to all of our photographs to get that final look. So those are the keys all put together. So now, okay, what if I've got an image like this one that her face is 1/3 or bigger or getting larger in the frame, and we want to do a little bit of that retouching. But I don't know if the bride's going to print this, but say she puts it on her phone or on her iPad and she doesn't want to see these anomalies sitting here on her forehead. What do I do? So first off, we're going to take everything we did on this photograph, all that stuff, and of course, it's built into a preset. So we're just going to click a button, bink, there we go. All of a sudden, we've got everything looking exactly like that. We're going to adjust the exposure just a touch. Perfect. Now the photo already looks like all the stuff we added here, we just added there in the click of one button right there. So this has profiles. This has all of my adjustments. It has my Fuji overlay on it, all that stuff. But we still have this issue right here with some of these anomalies. So what are we going to do about that? So what I like to do is we're going to open up a local brush adjustment. We're going to do this fast and simple because remember, this is still a proof. This is not a final print. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll down here to Skin Smooth 2, which is something that's built into Lightroom. And notice it takes down clarity, sharpness, and then ups noise reduction. Go figure. So I actually like to make those go to the extreme like this. And then what I want to do here is turn on this little button that says Show Selected Mask Overlay. What this does is allows me to see exactly where I'm painting this in and out. If you hit the brackets button, you can make that brush larger or smaller. Notice it's also feathered off to like 61%. That's good, so that if I kind of trace down a little too close to an eyebrow, it's not going to just have this hard blurred line, which we don't want. And I'm just going to go, oop, hang tight. Lightroom shut down on me there for a second. Is a profile the same as a preset? Hang tight. I'm going to, the video we can save. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. For some reason, Lightroom shut down on me. So you guys hang tight for 1 second. Let me open it back up. Sometimes when you're just running all this stuff, as I'm doing, things can get a little crazy. So I'm just going to open her back up here and then share the screen again. And we're getting close here. So everybody hang tight. You're going to see it all come together here. Okay. There we go. All right, great. And it also saved all of our info, which is awesome. Okay. Back to screen share. Here we go. Entire screen. All right. You guys should be able to see Lightroom again. Okay. Oops, hang tight. There we go. Okay. So now, like I said, we're gonna turn on our retouching. We're gonna have that mask overlay, and then we're gonna go ahead and paint in everywhere, but being very careful to avoid anything of contrast. Meaning, don't paint it over her eyebrows or her eyes or this little area right here or the lines on her face right there. You got to be very careful of that. Okay, so we're gonna paint like this by holding and clicking and then release. Okay, and then I'm going to make my brackets a little smaller. This doesn't have to be perfect. This needs to be acceptable for a proof. So I'm going to paint that in there. I'm going to bring this around. I'm going to get this side of the cheek well. I'm going to bring the brackets down a bit and paint in some of this. It looks a little weird because we have that mask on there, but the mask is very helpful to know exactly what we've done. Now, if you're a stickler like me, I like all skin to have the exact same amount of retouching on it so that it all has a similar effect. So for the sake of time, we'll just do it just like that. So now the reason that I put it on really heavy like that is so that, and by the way, if you want to go back to it, you just click this back open. Hang tight. My computer's acting crazy all of a sudden. Okay, now we can zoom in and we can see how heavy or how strong was it, and do we need to dial it back? So if we want to dial it back, we can make an adjustment to the clarity or to the sharpness or to the noise reduction to get this looking exactly like we want it to look. And boom, all of a sudden we have this beautiful retouch proof that looks fantastic. Now, I've actually do about 90% of my actual finalized retouching, say this was going to be a big canvas or a print, inside of Lightroom because Lightroom is really, really good. It's very few and far between that actually need to take it out of Lightroom. So now let's take all of this information that I've just shared with you guys and utilize it on a series of photographs like this to show you how fast you can get this done. So I take all of those retouching ideas, good lighting to start with, good direction of light, soft, beautiful lighting on her face, nice lighting pattern. Then I'm going to put in my luminance 160, which is one of my favorites. It adds that natural noise reduction to it. I'm going to bring the exposure up just a touch, bring down my highlights just a touch, and then I'm going to bring down the saturation just a little bit, and then I'm going to warm this photo up because I think that's going to make all the difference going from neutral to that slightly warm. And we're going to open the shadows just a hair. Looks great. Now I'm going to select all these photos, check everything except for local brush adjustments, any crops or spot removal, and then synchronize and take a look. Photo after photo, we went from raw to final images, just look fantastic. Now again, if there was a little anomaly or if she had a little zit, I would go in and quickly clone those out. And we're going to get into more details of how to do that stuff in coming webinars. So last two things I want to showcase to you. One, this is that image that I showed you guys earlier, which was that really rough lighting shot. But remember, just a reflector can make the world of difference. I took just a basic silver reflector. Notice all the lights coming straight down from up here. I put a reflector down below, literally just laid it on the ground and was able to photograph that. And that's with, you know, my standard Fuji 160. You can see it right here, setting, basic retouching that I showed you, generalized retouching, and done. There's a similar view straight on from the front. And you can really see the reflector. There it is right there in her eye. That little bit of light coming down from the top. Fantastic and beautiful. Notice adding more light, filling in the shadows, makes it look gorgeous. So last but not least, here's a photograph of my friends David and Tammy, who we do family sessions for each other all the time. I photographed this for them just 2 days ago, day before yesterday. And he gets all the files and he edits them himself, but he sent me this one over to show to you guys. Now check this out. This is how I'll typically edit. So we shot in good light. This was natural light. I didn't add any flash or reflector or anything to this. This is just the end of the day, and we had some beautiful light right at the golden hour. Light was reflecting off the lake in the background. I put some of these cool tree things in the foreground, so we have a nice composition, a nice look on the two of their faces. And then all I need to do at this point is add in my color profiling treatments and my preset. And I have it all here in one button. Now check this out. Boom. One click of a button. Let me show you these side by side so you can really see. My computer's running epically slow because I'm uploading to the internet and showing you guys all this stuff. So give it 1 second to format. Look at that. Her skin looks beautiful. Notice her face is not even close to 1/3 of the frame. So I don't need to do any serious retouching to it at all. If I wanted to, and this was the only photo, I could polish it up just a touch like I showed you earlier with the masking, but I don't need to. Looks fantastic. That's how quick and how easy we can add beautiful skin tones. So remember, the keys here are gorgeous, soft light to begin with, correct exposure, correct color. That's going to get you 80–90% of the way there. Noise reduction, color profiles, which I'm going to show you guys more about the color profiles in the coming webinars and how to create and make those. And then the correct preset that's going to pop those skin tones out. And that's some of those sliders that I showed you. The luminance, those little adjustments, and those shadow adjustments are going to make the images really come to life for you guys. Okay, let's hop out of this. All right. So let's hop into some questions here. I noticed there's a bunch of them coming through from you guys. There's almost 200 of you guys on, which is so amazing. Like I said, we were only 35 minutes, including my little fudge in the beginning there where I was trying to get this thing to work, but luckily we got it working. So I'm going to hop through and answer you guys' questions. And by the way, I mentioned this earlier. How do you create your own preset? Okay, so I'm going to answer all of your guys' questions as best as I can. But before I do that, a lot of you guys have been asking about this, and me and Jared are working on this cool little side project. It's not done yet. There's nothing for you guys to go get or to go buy. I'm not going to talk about anything like that, but there is, and I'm going to show this to you guys if you want to check it out. We're working on this thing called the Preset Crew, which is going to be this basically a club that you guys can join that's going to do all the hard stuff for you. So creating amazing presets. Jared's going to be making them, who's one of the best Adobe guys in the world. We're going to be making new ones every month. We're going to have cool videos like this all the time from me and Jared that are going to be like tips and tricks on how to make Lightroom faster, how to edit quicker, how to get better skin tones, or all this kind of amazing stuff. And it's not done yet, but right now there's a waiting list that we're starting for it. So I'm going to drop that in there. You guys can take a look at it. You should see it slide into the side of your screen. If you click that link, it's going to take you over to basically a sign up page that says, hey, I might be interested in this Preset Crew thing. It's going to be super cheap, really, really inexpensive to be in every single month. And we're going to be making new profiles, updates on Lightroom, new presets every single month. It's going to be really, really cool. And it's going to make your photos stay cutting edge so you don't have to worry about the headache and the stress of getting the right presets and creating the right way and making sure when you click this one and then that one, they don't overlap the wrong way, because that stuff frustrates me, and I've been doing Lightroom for 11 years. So check that out if you want to check it out. And then I'm going to hop over into the chat, and I'm going to start answering your guys' questions. So let me actually open. There's a control center. Yeah, this is like my back end way to see all your guys' questions. All right. Let's see. Well, it's supposed to show me those messages, but it's not. So I'll just look at them on the main screen. Oh, and by the way, I'll put that link for the preset crew waiting list into the chat so you guys can see it in there. I'll put it as a little sticky message up at the top. Let's see. There you go. There's the link up there at the top if you guys want to check that out. Okay, so I'm going to scroll back to the bottom. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather too. You might hear me like sniffling and sneezing a little bit. And actually, I'm going to grab myself a cough drop. Try not to make too much noise with it. But I'm going to scroll back down to the bottom. And Sean said, what setting do you use for your white balance in your camera? That's a great question. I don't have my camera in front of me, but your camera has a bunch of preset ones, you know, like shade and sun and all that stuff. And then it's got Kelvin, which a lot of photographers are like, I just use Kelvin and I dial it in by looking at like live view or looking at the back of your screen. The problem is your screen is not calibrated. If I held up 5D3s all shot in the same lighting with the same settings, all the screens would look different. Some will look green, some will look more purple because those aren't calibrated monitors. It's just a reference. They're getting better and they're getting closer, but even if you look at it outside versus inside, it's going to look completely different. So I don't use the back of the camera as my reference. I like to use the gray card or the Expo disc. So I set my camera to custom WB, which is on Canon, it's like, it looks like a little flower pot. And it's basically set on that all day. And in my menu of my camera, there's like a shortcut menu in the green area on the 5D series cameras, all the way to the right of the menu. And in there, you can put in like your top things that you want. Out of your whole menu, you can select a few things that you want to be there and as a shortcut, basically. And the one at the very top is custom white balance to set it in my camera. So I'll take an image and I'll hit menu set on my camera, and it'll take that image and it'll apply that color profile to my camera automatically. It's really cool. Okay, hopefully that answers your question, Sean. And I'll put these on the screen too. I forgot to do that. So the next one is from Courtney. She said, I had a wedding where the bride was pale and the groom's skin was red from the sun. If I adjust the red channel, she gets way too light. How do you compensate for two skin tones? That is an excellent question. Now, the challenge you're going to run into when you have, and now, of course, this is typically an anomaly. Like if you're shooting an African-American groom and a white bride, which we've done, right? He's darker, she's lighter naturally. She reflects more light, he reflects less. Some people go, what do I do to even it out? Well, we're not supposed to. He's supposed to be darker because he has dark skin. She's supposed to be lighter. We just want to put even light on them. Now, sometimes you can cheat a little bit, cheat a little light towards him to make sure there's good detail because the camera doesn't have a great dynamic range. So we can cheat a little bit, but what I would recommend is if you have a crazy anomaly, like he's been out in the sun and she's super white and Swedish or something like me, what do? Well, you can go in and you're going to have to do this individually. That's the only option here. One, you can actually, let me show you this really quick. This is a great question. This is a challenging question. I'm gonna share my screen one more time. I'm going to show you guys something really quick. So if I take a photo like, if I take a photo like this one here, and I go into the development module, this is something you can try to do. I don't have well, let's do one with two people in it. So their skin tones are fairly similar to each other. But notice right here, he's got a little bit more red tone in his face than she does. Well, if you scroll down to any area like the HSL color and black and white area, and I click on either hue or saturation. So say I want to adjust saturation, I click this little button right here. You can drag it into a specific area, click, and then drag down and up, and I can adjust that specific tone. Now notice what I just did there. I brought specific tones down, and now they're more evenly matched. She didn't get too pasty. He got more natural looking. See that? So that's something you can try doing to see if that will work. And then you can also go back to her and say, warm up her skin tone a little bit like that by dragging, and you click and drag up to go up, click and drag down to go down, obviously. Try that. If that doesn't work because there's too much of the similar tones, even though he's got a bunch of it and she doesn't have as much, the only other option you have at that point is to go localized. So I can click on the brush tool, I can zero everything out, and I can pick something like saturation. Maybe I just need to drop the overall saturation just a hair. And of course, you can sort of pick anything you want out of here. Cut, temperature, tint, contrast, whatever it may be. And now I can paint that in, and it doesn't have to be accurate. It just needs to be on his skin. And I can remove the mask actually. And notice that I can turn his face black and white if I want to, which of course that would look ridiculous. But I can bring it down by say 10%. Now they're super evenly matched. That might be the option that you have to do if you can't do what I showed you a second ago. So hopefully, let me get back here. Does that help? Hopefully that will help you. Those are your two options. You can go sliders up and down like this, or you're going to have to go local. Okay, next question is coming in from Michael. And Michael said, when you're done, let us know if there's a video we can save. I'm assuming you mean of this whole presentation. Yes. A replay is going to be going out. And I actually have a page link that I'm going to be sending all of you guys. And I'll show you this really quick. I'll drop it in actually right now. So it's not finished because the replays are not in there, but I'm actually going to drop it in for you guys to look at. I'm just going to drop it as a regular message. You should have seen it come right in the top there from me. That's all the previous webinars from this editing series are going to be right there. So if you click on that link, you'll see a picture of me and Jared, and then the 4 webinars that we're going to be putting together over the next 4 weeks. And the actual, you can just go in there and hit play and watch them. And then I'll also send you guys a link to this if you want to see this in full format with all the chat and all that stuff again. Because the other one won't have that. It'll just be a video of me. Okay, a couple other ones. Let's see. Oh, will there be a replay? I missed the beginning from Carrie. Yes. Sean, I think this is a question. He said, when using the Expo disc, let me broadcast this. When using the Expo disc, do you just shoot with auto white balance and take a reference shot in each lighting situation to use in editing, or do you use a custom white balance? Kind of answered that earlier, but you can do it either way. Totally up to you. I like to do it in the camera because it's just a quick shortcut where I press menu set after I take that picture. But as long as you get the reference, try to make it the first image you shoot before you shoot the other one. So when you're looking in your Lightroom catalog, you know which one it is. Super helpful. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to set it in your camera. You can just have your camera on auto white balance if you want, and then apply it in post-production. It takes, you just grab that. Same thing I did earlier where I grabbed the dropper and put it on the white dress. You may have, instead of a gray image, you may have a blue or an orange or all these weird looking shots of your Expo disc or of a gray card if you just use a generic gray card. All you have to do is grab that dropper and drop it right in the center, and it'll turn it gray, and then it'll give you the right color because that's an accurate 50-50-50 gray, neutral gray color. Okay. Let's see. Next question is coming from Andrea. And Andrea, great question. He said, is a profile the same as a preset? Answer is no. So a preset is basically saying I want to boost some color, some exposure, some contrast, some of the different color channels. I want to turn them up and down, or I want to add a split toning. I want to add a vignette. That's what a preset does. Profiling, think of it more as the way you view the world, right? So if you look through an 85, and this is not an exact example, but if you look through an 85 millimeter lens versus a 24, you see the world differently, right? One, you see it wider, one, you see it more narrow. A profile is similar to that, but it's more like an overlay, right? It's kind of saying, I look through the world with these colored eyes, and you look through the world with those colored eyes, kind of this texture or color or sense. So if you go in right now and look at your profiles, there's some in there, but Lightroom has done this really cool thing where they've allowed creatives like us to build our own profiles and put them into the system. Now it's complicated to how to do it, But when you have ones like that Fuji 160 one that I showed you, that just looks like, that's like my go-to. It's like gold. It's amazing. When you have 3 or 4 of those helping define and create that look in your style, holy cow. It's amazing. So that's hopefully that's a good description of what a profile is for you. Next is coming from Gwen. And she said, where did the Fuji profile come from? I don't see it in Lightroom. So that is a custom thing that I have built into my system that you guys don't have. That's something that I've had custom made. So that's why you don't see it. But the preset crew is going to have those Fuji presets and a bunch of other really cool ones. So you may remember back in the day, there was some other companies out there that were making like film emulations and all this really cool stuff. They're kind of complicated, and they kind of jimmy rigged the system where they would make Lightroom sort of do it. Some of them are really aggressive. So I took some of those ideas and I dialed them down to like what current photographers like and what I like, which is what you just saw, that Fuji 160 look, which is just this really beautiful effect. It's subtle, but it's definitely there. And we're going to be building those into the profiles correctly, because the ones I have are sort of haphazardly put in there, but Jared is going to be custom making those into the preset crew, which is going to be like a $10 a month thing. The first month is going to be like $1. So it's really cheap, but it's just a way for you guys to get amazing profiles and presets all the time and great content, and a way for us to keep doing it so that, you know, we have a community of people that are all in this thing, doing this thing together. So yeah, so that's why you don't see it in yours. Next up is coming from, let's see. Aaron asked the same question. Where's the Fuji preset from? Custom made by me. What brush did you use on the skin? So that's coming from Aaron. Said, what brush did you use on the skin? So the top right brush, which is called just the adjustment brush, you can press K to start using it, or you can just click on it. It's that top right brush. It's just the general localized brush. That's the one that I'm using. And then for the retouching, I'm using the skin smoothing section, or you can simply just pull down clarity, sharpness, and then add in noise. So turn up the noise reduction. So you're reducing clarity, reducing sharpness, and turning up noise reduction. And a combination of those things is what gives you really, really professional looking noise reduction, or sorry, skin retouching. Okay. A couple other questions. Margaret asked the same question. How did you get the Fuji profile? Okay, so Robin has said, this is a great question. How do you create your own presets? So presets, anyone can create one really, really easily. If you go into Lightroom and you make a couple adjustments in Lightroom, and I'll show you this really quick. So check this out. Show you my screen again. Okay, so if I go into Lightroom and say I made, some adjustments like exposure minus 63, highlights are up, and I turn it black and white. Okay, it's going to take a second here because, oh, hang on. Let me do that again. Exposure this way, shadows that way, and black and white. Not a good preset, but bear with me. If I scroll to the top of where it says presets here, in the development module, and click plus, I can create, import, or manage my presets. So I can now create a preset, create a category, create a name, decide what's going to be added every time I click it, and then click create, just like that. The problem, though, is that, let me back this sucker up. Oops. The problem that you have is if you don't build a preset correctly, and this has always been my challenge, so if you don't build a preset correctly, if you click a preset and then decide you don't like it and click on another one, it'll keep half those adjustments, or you'll be adjusting stuff you shouldn't be adjusting, like exposure or shadows or whatever it may be. And all of a sudden your image goes from looking awesome to looking weird to looking bizarre. And then you have to reset and sort of start over and try to figure out, you know, what went wrong. So correctly built presets will allow you to click from preset to preset and not have all these crazy weird overlays on them, but instead have the correct looking overlays that make the image look right. So all that to say, let me stop sharing here. All that to say is you have to build them correctly, and that's always a challenge. And the profiles is a whole other beast because it's a new thing. It's not super user friendly. But again, the presets club is going to find out what are the style of images that you guys love the most. We're going to make sure we make a bunch of presets like that and allow you guys to get your hands on mine and a bunch of really, really cool ones. Couple other questions. Somebody, Rachel, said, when you hold a reflector at a 45-degree angle against a wall, how do you make sure that there is not a shadow on the wall? It's a great, I'm trying to think exactly what you're asking. But I think you might be saying, if I'm reflecting light onto someone, maybe that's the question. How do I not make it hit the wall? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you're asking me with that question. When you hold a reflector at a 45-degree angle against a wall, how do you make sure there's not a shadow on the wall? I'm not sure. It depends on, there's some parts of the question I'm not quite understanding, but as an example, there's some light falling on me right now from my video light. And if that light's coming in and say I was shooting from this angle, notice there's a shadow back here and there's light here, and I wanted to fill in some shadow, my reflector would be, over by this wall on this side, filling in this light, but the camera would be shooting this way. So it wouldn't see that, wouldn't see that. The goal is usually to fill in light on my subject. If my subject is right up against a wall and I pound a reflector on it with a lot of bright light, it's going to cast a highlight and a shadow on that wall, and I have to be cognizant of what that's looking like. But hopefully that helps answer your question. Okay, a couple more quick questions before we're done here. Sean said, when using the Expo disc, do you just shoot with an auto white balance? Oh, I already answered that question. Yes, you can shoot it either way. And then Rachel, maybe this is a clarification of that question, the shadow from the reflector. Oh, you know what I think you're asking? Okay, so notice there's a shadow on the wall right here from my light up there. So if I was diffusing some direct sunlight, maybe that's what you're asking, diffusing some direct sunlight, you do have to be very careful not to let that shadow hit the wall or give away the whole effect. So if I'm putting shade on my subject, but I have like a fully lit by the sun background, you have to make sure that they're just moved away from the wall so that shadow doesn't fall on the wall. That's the only thing you can do about it. Unless the light's coming in from an angle, then we can diffuse from over here and avoid hitting that wall back there. But yes, great question. You definitely have to make sure you don't see the shadow, because if you do, it totally kills the effect. But that's a great question. That's all the questions we have. There's still 150 of you guys on here. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm going to send out a replay to this, and I'm also going to send out an email Monday or Tuesday, sort of breaking down the basics, like step 1, step 2, step 3 of how to do this exact same stuff in Lightroom. And then next week, it's going to be super exciting. We've got the incredible Jared Platt coming on with us to do some of his best tips and tricks in Lightroom. He is a freak of nature. He's so good. He's a great teacher. It's going to be really, really exciting. So I can't wait to have Jared on with us. And by the way, there's going to be another live webinar of this particular one, the same one that you just saw, tonight at 8 o'clock. So if you just came in late or you missed the beginning, or you're watching this at some other point, you can sign up for the 8 o'clock one, or if you have a friend who you think might really benefit from this, have them come to that one. Michael says, thanks for your efforts with the presentation from Hartford, Connecticut. Thanks, man. Thanks. I learned a lot. Very helpful from Jerry. Thanks so much from Kevin. Thank you from Sharon. You guys are awesome. 1,000 of you guys signed up for this class, or over 1,000. Thank you guys for coming to this. Hope you got a lot out of it. Short and sweet, right to the point. I may see some of you guys tonight at 8 o'clock if you come back on with me. And then next week, don't miss out. We'll send a link out Tuesday probably for you to sign up for the webinar with Jared. It's going to be awesome. And if you have the link to that replay page, it'll come on there as well. Then also, click over to the preset crew thing, check it out, sign up to get on the waiting list. You'll just hear about it. And it's a super cheap and inexpensive thing when it comes out. It's going to be $10 a month. when we actually do launch it. And the first month's going to be $1. And me and Jared are doing it together. So we're going to be working on stuff for it every single month. It's going to be really cool. Jesse said, thanks, Zach. I said, thanks, man. You rock. Appreciate you sharing your experience and knowledge. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Jen from Montana, for coming. And Cece, I hope I'm saying that right. Thank you. She said, did an awesome job. I appreciate it. So I'll see you guys tonight or on the replay or next week live with the amazing Jared Platt. So you guys have an awesome rest of your day. Talk to you later. Bye.